Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Flex Zone. I'm a little bit happier this week. Joined by your host Sohan Ahmad.
I am not.
I will claim myself as a fantasy football expert this week. And as always, joined by our co-host Rehan Ahmad. Um, you know, I know, I hate to say this, I hate to gloat, because I know Rehan didn't have quite as fortunate of a week as I did. But I finally kind of got some wins, thankfully, in two of my leagues at least. Didn't, have any terrible injury scares so far, but Rehan unfortunately was not so lucky.
Dude, the hexes come and the hexes go. This week was terrible for me. I lost Malik Neighbors. Lamar Jackson had a pretty significant injury. We're still waiting to hear details, but we'll get into it in the injury section. But yeah, a lot of people are in the same boat as me. Some people, like I had Joe Burrow and Malik Neighbors. So it's like,
Yeah.
I read one guy had Malik Neighbors, Joe Burrow, Tyreek Hill, and James Conner. So, I feel bad for you, man.
Yeah,
You
that's
need to
that's
quit
rough.
playing fantasy football. That's like God telling you, wrap it up for this year. But we'll get into
Yeah.
all the injuries.
Speaking of injuries, I was
Yeah.
putting this list together, and it was just like, man, I'm running out of room. There's so many injuries here. There seems to be a theme though. It was like one week it was quarterbacks got hurt. Then running backs got hurt. This week it was wide
Wide
receivers.
receivers, man.
Wide receivers got the axe this week. So we'll just go down the list for everyone who's not aware. We talked about Malik out for the year. Tyreek dislocated knee. He's more than likely out for the year.
He might be out
Lamar,
next year.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's
Right.
it's a gruesome injury that he had.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I heard about it. Thankfully,
There's
I didn't
pictures.
watch
His
it.
leg was bent the other way. It's
Yeah,
bad. It was bad.
and it's a shame too because my son and I were literally watching a YouTube video, Tyreek Hill with the Dude Perfect guys on YouTube, and it was like, what are the odds that he gets hurt the same day? Um, Lamar Jackson, we talked about he's got a hamstring injury. I don't know if it was because they were getting blown out, kind of an injury to explain why he's not in the game, or if it's a real injury.
I really hope that's the case, and not
Yeah,
that it's a hamstring injury, because that
I
would
mean,
stink.
Lamar is not usually the type of guy to like, no matter how bad the score is, he usually plays. So
Yeah.
I would be, I'm hopefully optimistic with Lamar. Bucky Irving has a kind of a new kind of injury concern coming up here. I don't know enough details to say if it's serious, but just keep an eye out for it. Obviously, just see what's going on with the practices and everything else that might affect how you do at your waiver pickups for the running backs. And then the rest of the receivers, as we go down this list, Ricky Pearsall hurt his knee; he was out for the game. Juwan Jennings got hurt. The Niners just seem to be getting hurt at every
Every single time.
possible position.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley hurt his ribs.
That's not that
Darnell
big of a
Mooney.
shock considering how
No.
bad he's been this season, but
Right.
still.
Right. But I'm just, let's see some receivers that
Yeah.
you may have as, on your team. Darnell Mooney got hurt a little bit. Charles Tillman got hurt. Calvin Austin hurt his shoulder. Miles Sanders hurt his ankle. Braylon Allen had to leave the game on Sunday as well. So just a slew of injuries coming out. So you can only hope that this week will
Yeah,
light on
and
the injury.
I don't know if you mentioned Jalen Warren got hurt.
Well, right,
but,
yes,
but they have a
yes,
bye
yeah.
week, so I think
Yeah.
it's more precaution than anything. So hopefully
Exactly,
he'll be back.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Um,
that was a big screw up on my part. Thankfully, I didn't need it, but I had
Yeah.
Jalen Warren, and everything was he's playing. Thankfully, I woke up early because my kids don't let me sleep, and I saw the news 45 minutes before the game. He's out. I didn't pick up Gainwell. I should have. I didn't because I was trying to, inception myself into a grander scheme of things that probably didn't make sense. But it sounds like it's like you said, because of the bye week, they took that extra precaution. But he is expected to play when he comes back in week 6.
Yeah, so just want to wrap up the injuries. I mean, you pretty much went through the whole list. There are some other injuries that will impact other aspects that aren't really, skill position relevant. But Baltimore, man, their defense is devastated. They lost their best defensive tackle for the year.
Yep.
They also just lost Marlon Humphrey, one of their best corners. Baltimore defense, in my opinion,
And
is
their defense is
droppable.
already bad.
It was
before these
already bad, yeah, but now they're kind of like droppable. Just a lot of people I know they drafted Baltimore defense. It turned into like the Bengals, where it's like shootout central now, which is good if you have
I'm
Lamar
shocked. I'm shocked.
based on his injury. But other than that, the Chargers also lost their O line, their best offensive lineman, Joe Alt. I
So
don't know how long he's out for, but he was doubtful for this game, so that impacts the run game. But we'll see what kind of impact that has. But I think that's pretty much it. besides some minor injuries that we may have missed.
Yeah. So we'll quickly go through our flexes and hexes. We're changing the script a little bit here to make sure we have enough time for the waivers. We're just going to go down our list. If anybody wants to talk about them, send us a message. If anybody wants to talk trash about our picks, send us a message, or if anybody wants to give us praise for our picks, send us a message too.
We did have some praiseworthy picks, I gotta say, especially me. I feel like I hit on some of these picks last week.
So I'll start with the flexes here. So quarterbacks, we did a lot better this week. Stafford had a game, much better game than I think I expected. I thought it was going to be a little more kind of run leaning, but Puka Nacua just went off. And then Devontae, even with his kind of limited practice week, he also had a touchdown. He even had a 88-yard touchdown to Tutu Atwell. So Stafford went off. Jackson Dart, we had talked about, I'm putting him in the flex category just because he kind of showed us some running potential. He didn't look good to me at all as a quarterback running from a throwing standpoint.
Well, you know what? I mean, look, he lost Malik Neighbors in the first quarter. Or I think, it was the first quarter, I think.
Well, even with Neighbors, when Neighbors was there, he wasn't really throwing the ball.
But I read a lot of the articles, so I'm a Giants fan, but just reading between the lines, I think Dable wanted a safe game script for him. That's why he didn't have a lot of pass attempts. Chargers are a really good defense also. So I think, listen, the fact that the Giants won that game with Malik Neighbors out and the Chargers were making a run at the end, I do think Dart has sneaky upside. They're playing the Saints this week. So
if nothing else, nothing else for the running aspect.
Exactly, the running aspect. We can't rely on the throwing, but All right, so who else do we have on this list? We have Tua.
Tua had a nice game last night. Solid game. Could have been a little bit better, but solid. Woody Marks, we talked about. Woody Marks had a huge game. Hopefully that continues, and hopefully we see less.
Well, he's probably gonna be the number one waiver wire pickup of the week, which we'll catch.
I would expect so. I would expect so. Yeah. Quentin Johnson just keeps it rolling, man. I don't think we can continue to have him on this waiver conversation. I hope not. People.
No, I think he's the wide receiver one of that team. It looks
like he's. I think he's wide receiver 4 on the year,
which is insane.
It's insane. Yeah.
Wait. I just want to say, for all those Lad McConkey fans, man, I feel for you guys.
I did warn you guys.
I was a big Lad McConkey guy too, so I'm shocked.
Romeo Dobbs. I kind of called. We weren't sure who was going to be right against. We knew somebody was going to do.
But for touchdowns, it's always Romeo Dobbs, man.
And I said
he catches all their touchdowns.
Romeo has his trust when it's when it's like that difficult situation. Romeo seems to have more of his trust than the other guys do. But not to say that this is going to happen again, right? This is a textbook case of one and done, in my opinion. Unless they play another Cowboys-esque kind of defense, right? Dalton Schultz, one of Rayhan's tight end picks. He had a nice game, again, relevant to tight end standards. And the next couple of guys here, Dr. Strange, Bretton Strange continues to have a pretty strong, strong floor type of season. Not a huge ceiling, but with how bad Trevor Lawrence is as a quarterback and as a football player, Strange is getting a lot of benefit from that. And then Rayhan's kind of dart throw pick, Darren Waller, came back to life, came back out of retirement.
Well, and now it's even more significant given the
Tyreek Hill more injury. So more. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you didn't pick him up before. We'll talk about him in the waivers, but just be ready for some fab to be going his way.
Exactly.
Now to the hexes. So we'll start with the quarterbacks. Geno Smith,
I know you were like Geno Smith. I think you picked him.
He couldn't have had an easier matchup. He really couldn't have had an easier matchup. But this guy continues to throw and throw and throw, even when they have the lead. I don't understand what is going on in Las Vegas. Hopefully they see that. I was glad that they lost the game, even as well as Ashton Genty played. I was really happy that they lost the game because hopefully that makes the coaches, forces them to see that this letting Geno throw 40 times a game is not the formula for success here.
Yeah.
Bryce Young, he came back down to earth. Got walloped pretty bad by the Patriots.
Stay down to earth.
I
think it's pretty. Unless something drastically changes, I think his career is kind of.
I mean, the talent the talent around him is not fantastic.
I mean, listen, but he still has Chuba Hubbard. He has Tedero McMillan. They have an offense. I think their line is not great.
It's when the games are close, they can kind of do something, right? Because they're more of a run-based team.
But you can't trust the team. They're like the Titans.
Once the lead goes away from them, it's
a wrap for them.
Ollie Gordon, he came back down to earth as well. I was hoping for a little bit of a sneaky, maybe vulture type of situation, but they gave that one to HA. And so again, still valuable to have as a backup, but not the game that you would have hoped for. Trey Tucker, this was the one that surprised me a little bit because of Gino didn't throw a lot, but he threw a lot more than he needed to given the situation. The only thing promising with Trey Tucker is that he was getting some running touches as well. He was getting some jet sweeps, and they were trying to get him involved. So even though he had not a good statistical game, the opportunities are still intriguing for me to kind of maybe stash him if you can. Christian Kirk, again, the Houston, they just didn't need to throw really. It was the Woody Marks show.
Woody Marks had like 2 touchdowns.
Playing Tennessee, it is what it is, right? Like, not to say that Christian Kirk can't have a bounce back week another week, but just that wasn't the one.
Yeah.
Luther Burden, I think he had about 2 catches for -4 yards or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Bears offense, I feel like,
Bears
even though they
offense,
won the game, it was a terrible
unless you're Romeo,
showing.
unless you're Rome, you don't want to be part of that.
Well, like I said, I think the good news is, look, the Bears are on bye this week. They're gonna get a lot of stuff. I think DJ Moore is just literally running for cardio in this team. They need to consolidate. At this point, if they get rid of DJ Moore, I think Burden plays a lot more of a role. They drafted him high.
There's some intriguing trade options out there. For multiple teams, but and then last a couple of tight ends here. Chig Ngakwe, did nothing.
Titans just terrible.
That's just the Titans. Juwan Johnson was a little bit of a surprise here, but he did get an early first quarter injury where he had to come out of the game for a short while. So I'm not completely surprised by kind of his end result because of that. And he was playing a tough defense against tight ends, but I do expect him to bounce back.
And then I think Isaiah Likely was the last one. I mean, he just came back. And
then
Lamar got hurt.
Off because I don't think we were really expecting because this is his first game back. Like I don't think anyone was really expecting
I think
him.
Once he ramps up, he's going to be a good side. Now, I would just want to finish with one thing. The coach, Harbaugh, literally said, I want Isaiah Likely to have an all-pro season. So when a coach says that, when he ramps up, I actually think if you could get him, stash him, and hope for the best.
And especially if you see the targets have been ticking up for Mark Andrews. And I don't know what's happening with Jarek Henry. Like, I'm shocked to see how poorly he's been doing. So maybe we start seeing Lamar throw a little bit more. And Lamar's had success this year throwing the ball. So don't be caught unawares with Isaiah Likely when it's too late to do it. Right.
All right. So let's go into the waiver picks.
Get into our quarterbacks. So
Matt
Stafford again, and we didn't say this, so we were going to discuss it in our matchup week, but this is the first week of buys. There are 4 teams on buys: the Packers, the Steelers, the Bears, and the Falcons. Right, so not a ton of quarterback. Jordan Love, maybe you're playing from that list. I don't know if and some people may be still playing Caleb, but quarterback standpoint, right? It's not just the waivers, but we also have. Not just the buys, but we still have a lot of injured quarterbacks, right? Hopefully Jaden Daniels comes back this week, but between the Burrow, Lamar Jackson, all the kind of other things that have been happening on the quarterback front, it's just, if you can have a backup quarterback, I think this is the season where you want to have a backup quarterback. And Stafford has yes, it's the Niners, but the Niners defense is not what it was. Nick Bosa's out for the year, so nobody's really scared of the Niners defense.
And it's at home.
It's at home. He has a lot of history playing against the Niners as well. So I'm not overly concerned about it. And look, he's got Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. I don't think you can say that there's a better 1-2 punch from
and look at his matchup coming up. Baltimore at Jacksonville. We just talked about how Baltimore is literally like just the turnstile on the defense. And Jacksonville, I'm not scared of the defense. The defense has been better this year, but I still think with the weapons that Matt Stafford has and the emergence even of Blake Corum. I mean, Kyron Williams has been good. And Puka Nacua has been one of the best players in the league.
And listen, Kyron is getting a lot of catches as well. So that's all in benefit of Stafford. And Stafford, think about it. Look, if you look at it across his stats, he doesn't always give you the most exciting ceiling, but he generally has a pretty
good
safe
floor.
Exactly. Right? So it's more about stability with Stafford than it is about, a splash play that week.
Yeah.
So now going to kind of our, gambles and splash play kind of, hopeful people. Carson Wentz. He's only 5% rostered. McCarthy may start to practice this week, but
I actually looked at this from you, and I was a little hesitant because they're playing at Cleveland.
So here's why, and here's why, because Cleveland as strong of a defense as they have, right? They've been getting dinged up a little bit. They're getting some injuries, and it's kind of a weird because it's going to be in London again. So
I know, man.
Vikings
Like
played in
Minnesota has played
Ireland
on the
last
road
week,
in weird
and then
places.
they're playing in London. So
Yeah,
why do I
it's
bring this up?
insane.
Because Minnesota has been there. Minnesota was in Ireland last week. They stayed. They haven't come home, so they're not gonna get jet lag. Cleveland is gonna be going there
That's
for
true.
that week. So again, it's a gamble, right? But it's looking at the offensive weapons, looking at how much they're letting Wentz throw the ball. He's gonna 100% throw 2 picks. Like I'll put that in the books, right? But he might also get you 300 yards and 2 touchdowns to go with that, with some rushing.
Listen, I mean, look, I like how he looked with Addison and Justin Jefferson. They got really
We'll
involved.
compliment back,
Well,
right?
I mean, right, the
Exactly.
person who's been taking the biggest back seat, and of course, surprise, surprise, I have him. TJ Hawkinson has been like an afterthought in this offense. And look, Jordan Mason is going to be Jordan Mason. So while I agree with Wentz, I just don't know against Cleveland, but I think you made some fair points
Yeah,
with the jet
exactly.
lag
Yeah,
and
I
then
would, right.
playing in
I
a
wouldn't
different
say play him
country.
against Cleveland unless you are like
Yeah.
desperate. You
I
got
mean, yeah,
injured
exactly.
quarterbacks, right? But this is just looking at who is available
Yeah.
from a waiver standpoint and who gives you the most like ceiling potential. That's kind of where I'm going with this. And then Jackson Dart, 25% rostered. You know, we talked about him again. This is really the rushing upside, and he's playing New Orleans.
I
Right? New
actually think
Orleans,
this is the only week you can play him
yeah,
because he has murderer's row
for a
after
while.
this.
For a while,
Yeah. Like to me, New Orleans after that, I have him and I was gonna drop him for Stafford this week, but then I realized, you know what? This is the only time I can play him and I can get a safe floor because he'll get running. He'll probably get a rushing touchdown. They have nobody else besides him and Cam. I don't trust Darius Slayton. Wandale
Yeah.
Robinson, okay, I'll trust him a little bit. But
They're
this
all
offense is gonna
interchangeable.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, at this point, this is the only week you could play him, in my opinion. One guy I want to talk about is Tua. You know, Tua's still out there. He's 25.7% rostered. I know with the news of Tyreek going down may seem like it's a huge hit, but they play at Carolina. You could throw against Carolina, and I actually think, listen, Tyreek is an amazing talent, but this kind of consolidates their offense a little bit. I feel like Waddle and Tyreek are the same type of player. Now Waddle could go back to being the alpha receiver on the outside. We saw Darren Waller, Devon Achane. If you have him, he's been one of my best players, and he's been consistent every week.
I'm so mad that I kind of underestimated his toughness, you know, that he's sticking it out. But
Yeah.
It's going to be the short game, right? And
Yes.
with no Tyreek, he doesn't have to be forced to throw deep now. They're going to play short. They already wanted to play
I
short
actually
with
think
Tua.
Tyreek, look, Tyreek never asked him to throw deep all the time, but I feel Tua was always pressured to have this deep game all the time. And I think now he gets controlled offense a little bit more. Listen, I'm not asking for 30 points from him. If he could get me 20 to 23 points,
Exactly. Tua's
that's
another
well
like,
within the right of it.
that's where Tua's sweet spot is. You're
Yeah.
looking at like a 20, maybe a 23, somewhere in that range. Like you're not gonna get much more. The days of Tua getting 35,
Yeah.
you know, those days are kind of beyond him. But again, safe floor.
Exactly. All right. So let's go to running backs.
Running backs.
Start with your guy first.
Yeah. So we're talking about Woody Marks. Normally, you know, we don't typically like kind of focus on the fab waiver budget kind of piece of this, but if Woody Marks is out there for you and he is currently 31% rostered, you're gonna have to drop the bag on it. You know, at first when I first put this in, I was like, you're gonna put 50% on. Well, like maybe not 50%, maybe 20% of your budget you're gonna have to put on there, right? At least I would say. If you're not doing that much, then don't expect to get him because running backs are already scarce as it is. And he's got again Baltimore, great matchup. Seattle, I'm not scared of. San Francisco, I'm not scared of. Denver is actually really weak against the run. Surprisingly, that's like their weakness. As good of a defense as they are, and then you look the rest of them: Jacksonville, Tennessee, Buffalo's not great against the run, but Buffalo will probably get a huge lead on it. But we've seen Woody Marks getting passing work as well, 5 targets. So I'm not really afraid of any of these other matchups. As you can, we don't know what's happening with Joe Mixon. I mean, they still don't know if Joe
No,
Mixon.
well, right now I read a news article that he's still not even ready yet. He might miss the whole season, but it doesn't really matter at that point because look at the bye week, week 6. Rookies technically after there's a trend after bye week, rookies start getting more action. So I do see this Houston team really putting it on, giving Woody more reps. I actually think Chubb will be the backup to Woody by the time this, hits the, like you said, week 8, week 9, around that time. You could see maybe goes to a timeshare to full on, Woody taking the backfield. So to your point, I think he is a must add on your team.
Last couple of guys for me, I've kind of said them over and over again. So I'm not going to go through the detail. Ollie Gordon, again, is purely just for, backup purposes. I'm surprised, Brian Robinson is kind of in that same category, but, it's kind of pick your poison, whichever one you want. Ollie Gordon seems to be getting more game to game.
Well, I tend to go with youth over experience because
Exactly.
we know what
Exactly.
Brian Robinson could do. We know
Yeah.
what his shortcomings is. Ollie Gordon's a rookie, or
Yeah.
I think he's a rookie, right? So
Okay.
he's
Yeah.
yeah. So we don't know. He's a good player, and I think
Yeah.
in that offense now he is going to be more involved. They're gonna need.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
exactly. So I think he's going to be the red zone goal line back. In certain cases, they might use him and
Yeah.
HG at the same time. So he is a good pickup, and you won't have to spend a lot on him, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
you
And
could get it for free. Quite
yeah,
honestly,
pretty
I
much. Yeah.
think you can get it free. And Tajay Spears again, he should be now getting eligible to play. Hopefully, he plays this week, but he'll at least be practicing this week. So it's coming the week or two. And Tony Pollard has not. He's gotten a ton of volume, but given that offense, Tony Pollard's not really done a lot. The other guy I'll throw out there because of the whole, I don't know what's happening with Bucky Irving. If for some reason Rashad White is out there, and I don't know what his roster percentage is right now. I think he's probably somewhere in the 70s,
Yeah, I
70%
think he's
range.
he's
If I had to
rostered
guess.
pretty well.
But if he's out there for some reason, get him.
48.4, so he's just under
You
50%.
just like make sure if that what he marks, Rashad White should also be very high on your fab budget for the waiver pick priority wise. Just because I don't know, this Bucky injury kind of came up, suddenly. Hopefully it doesn't linger. Hopefully it's not anything serious. But just Rashad White, when he was RB1, he was a top 10 kind of running back at some point not that long ago. So he can do it again.
Yeah. Just to add, for me, I think another player that I'd be interested in is Kendry Miller. Kendry Miller got a lot of action last game, and he actually played pretty well. 11 rushes, 65 yards. I mean, look, this is Alvin Kamara's team, but I actually like that they're starting to get Kendry Miller a little bit more involved in the offense. Look, they got the Giants
You
this
have
week.
to.
Yeah,
They
like
have to.
look, the Giants, New England, Chicago. These are terrible teams, right,
Yeah.
on defense. I actually think if any weeks Kendry Miller goes off, it's these 3 weeks. So to me, he's the only other, I think, I wouldn't even call him a must pick up, but if you are desperate with the bye weeks or you just hurting at running back, he is a good option to have. And obviously, if Kamara goes down for whatever reason, he to me is a must pick up. And the only other guy I would talk about, I'm not even going to show him because this is more of a like kind of like a hold.
Yeah.
Caleb Johnson finally got a little bit of work, and that was due to Warren being injured. And remember, Gainwell still, he had a great game, but we know Kenneth Gainwell's we know what he could do.
Yeah. All the waiver kind of, sites and all the other sites are saying you got to pick up Kenny Gainwell. I'm not so sure about
I know
him
what
because
Gainwell is. I don't like Gainwell. I think he's a good player, but he's not the player. Caleb Johnson was a rookie they picked up in the 3rd round. He's going to go through growing pains, but now Pittsburgh is in their bye week. So now, look, Warren's going to be the number one back, but he hasn't been great. So to me, that means that maybe during the later half of the year, Caleb Johnson gets a little bit more work. I think he's the better running back than Gainwell because of his physical stature and just what he could bring to the
and
table.
Gainwell, the Vikings are really bad against the run.
Yeah.
Right. That was one part, and they were playing overseas. So there's a lot of things that factor into that. And they surprisingly got a big lead over the Vikings. And they just kept running the ball. Right. So I don't see Gainwell even in this Pittsburgh offense. And that's kind of the reason why I didn't pick up Gainwell, is because we weren't sure, was it going to be a committee situation or what?
Yeah.
But I think Arthur Smith is showing you that he doesn't really do committees. He's going to give it to one guy. So if Warren is healthy, it's going to be Warren. If Gainwell is healthy and he's the only healthy one, then it'll be Gainwell. So you just kind of rotate.
Yeah,
one to one.
exactly. So he's more of a dart throw. But let's head into wide receivers.
Yeah. So wide receivers, there's not a lot in my opinion like this week, but there is one big one that I think people should be on the lookout is Brandon Ayuk. He's 47% rostered. He's still on IR, but he should be coming back in a week or two. And the main reason is look at all the injuries between Pearsall, between Kittle, between Juwan Jennings, right? Yeah. If let's say Brandon Ayuk comes back at even 70% of what he was when he was healthy, he's easily could fall into a wide receiver 2 category, right? Just from a volume standpoint. Now, obviously, he hasn't played in a full year. We don't know. They're saying he's not close to returning, but I'm reading also that week 6 is kind of the sweet spot for getting it. So why am I saying this again? This is more of a stash pick. That's the main guy for me that I want to stash as I'm looking across these other receivers. Otherwise, it's kind of dark throw guys. It's
Yeah.
Jalen Tolbert had a nice game, you know, playing second 2A fiddle to George Pickens. But that's only as good as, CeeDee Lamb is out. But it's not
Yeah,
someone who
it's completely temporary. Yeah, I agree with it.
and Romeo Dobbs we talked about, I don't think Romeo has a history of having these great games and then disappearing and then going, it's a complete gamble if you go with any Green Bay receiver. But Romeo has shown his trust factor is there, but they are playing Cincinnati after the bye. They're playing Cincinnati after the bye week.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little schedule there potentially to, take advantage of.
So just finally for me to add, Troy Franklin, I think we talked about him in a different episode, but so I would not be discouraged just because he didn't have a great game, but he still got the targets. He still got
Yeah,
8 targets. The thing is, Mims had a great game. Cortland Sutton he's been playing better. I still like Troy Franklin on this team. I see Bo Nix get a little bit more comfortable as the season goes on. Next week is tough because they play at Philly, but after that they play the Jets and the Giants in Dallas.
The Philly defense has not been as
But I'm just
scary
saying,
as
like I
as
wouldn't play
yeah.
him against the Philly
Yeah,
Eagles if you have better options. But against
Yeah.
the Jets, Giants, and Dallas, I actually think he's a decent pickup for those weeks.
Yep.
Then finally, I think we talked about this. I'm not even gonna show his graphic because this is more again a dart throw. Get it? Pun dart throw, because this is Darius Slayton. So now with Malik Neighbors out, who is gonna catch the ball, right? Your money is on Wan'Dale Robinson. I know you. We're going to talk about the tight end, I think, in the next segment. But to me, the deep threat turns into Darius Slayton. He's not the best player. He has boom weeks and then he just disappears.
He's a reliable slot guy. He's a slot guy, right? It's like
but he goes
the
deep.
young quarterbacks.
Yeah, but Wan'Dale, I think, is there every kind of. He could be their yak guy. He could get a lot of catches, especially with Dart's offense.
They're going to need to trade for AJ Brown. That's what they need to do.
Well, I mean, look, DJ Moore, AJ Brown. There's a lot of unhappy wide receivers out there, right?
Yeah.
But I think the thing is the way Wan'Dale plays and the way Dart throws the ball. Remember, Dable, he used to coach Josh Allen, right? In fact, that's why he got this job as the Giants. He wanted to mentor the next Josh Allen. If they're going to bring up Jackson Dart as Josh Allen, that means quick throws, intermediate throws, and then maybe as he gets more comfortable, the big shot, right? But that means Wan'Dale will be the better player, but Darius Slayton may be the deep shot. So if there's a dart throw, maybe it's Darius Slayton. I'm not happy about that pick, but that's the only other wide receiver I can think of that isn't Wan'Dale Robinson on this team.
All right, let's finish off with the tight ends. So speaking of the Giants, Theo Johnson, I think, is going to be a reliable outlet. He had a nice game. With these young running, especially the running quarterbacks, we've seen historically, running quarterbacks favor tight ends, right? Look at Kyler Murray, look at Lamar Jackson, look at Jaden Daniels, look at Jalen Hurts. Historically speaking, they're good for tight ends. So Theo Johnson he's young. I think this is his second year. Physically talented guy. So someone, especially with Malik Neighbors going down, it's kind of the same situation with the Dolphins. Like, expect there to be quicker, shorter throws. And I think
they have to get rid of 13 targets.
Yeah.
They have to figure out a way to disseminate 13 targets because that's what Malik Neighbors
would
average, right? So who's going to get it? Is it Theo? Is it Wan'Dale? It's going to be a mix, right? A committee. So I agree with that.
And then Darren Waller, 5% roster, like we talked about. I think you're going to have to spend some money on him. Probably not a lot, but I would say you're probably going to spend 1 to 2% at least. And then Isaiah Likely, for the same reason we talked about earlier in the show. I still have him as, for me, a top waiver pick for tight ends.
So that's pretty much it for me. I agree with all those picks. It's already barren in most leagues, right? Like you're not going to get superstars out there, but I think Darren Waller to me is the pickup of the week. If you could get him based on his previous history and what happened to Tyreek, I think he's the best option.
Yep. All right. So if anybody has any other things that, people that we're not seeing or things that you guys want us to talk about from the waiver standpoint, from, across the positions and, the kicker, argument, if we want to include that in here, send us a message, send a post. If you're not watching this live, please check us out on the recording. And good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck, man. That's all I could say is good luck.
Hopefully you have an injury-free week.
Yeah.
That's all
burn some incense. go to your church of choice or your religion of choice and make some prayers, man, because
Yeah.
we all need it after the way these injuries have been going down.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.